Hey, Frog fans, welcome into another episode of Indy Drill. I am your host, Jamie Plunkett. Welcome to the show. We've got another very full episode, but we're going to try something different this time. Not different. I lied to you straight out of the gate. I'm so sorry. We are going to try and keep it a little shorter tonight, namely because I'm recording this pretty late on Tuesday night and I want to go to bed, but the show goes on, right? We got to get the content out when we say we do, because if we're not doing what we say we do, even if we're the only ones to hold ourselves accountable, then why are we doing anything at all, right? So we're going to record a quicker version of the Indy Drill tonight. We're going to talk about quite a bit, though. We're going to get to some Twitter questions. Blueprint Sports is at it again with some more shenanigans, and they're losing clients because of it. We're going to get into that. The CSC might be blowing it, y'all. The College Sports Commission, they're starting to really piss off some collectives and piss off some people. And lo and behold, a couple SEC collectives are already going around them to pay players. Are we surprised by this? No, not necessarily. We're also going to get into what happens when a player sits out, when they decide to preserve their red shirt. Do they still get their rev share money? Because that's not what's happening at Virginia Tech. We're going to break into that, and then we're going to make some picks for Week 7, including the TCU-Kansas State game. We'll get into that at the very end. But thank you for being here. Again, this is the Indy Drill. I am Jamie Plunkett. This show is a solo show for those of you that have not encountered it before. I will say this. The numbers are going crazy every week. And all the shows across the Frogs Insider platform are just growing and growing and growing, and it is super cool to see. I am very thankful for each and every one of you who listens, whether it's to this show or to Melissa's From the Other Sideline or to our big show that we do together every Sunday night. Super, super thankful for each and every one of you. So keep listening to the show. We love that you're doing that. We're very appreciative of that. And if you would be so kind as to maybe share it. If you see my tweet on socials about this show, or if you see Melissa's tweet about the From the Other Sideline show, give it a retweet. Send it to a friend, because we love interacting with people. We've gotten so many emails and texts and DMs and just all of the people that we've interacted with who say they like the content or make recommendations for the content. It's just so much fun to get to know you guys, to connect with you all in that way, because that's the reason we do this stuff, right? Like, Melissa and I don't make a full-time living on any of this. We just do it because we both love TCU. We love doing this content. We've enjoyed working together for over a decade now. And most importantly, you guys seem to enjoy it. So we're going to keep doing it as long as there's folks out there that want to keep listening, because we're really grateful for each and every one of you. So yeah, share this with someone who you think might like it. If this is the Indy Drill that you're sharing, maybe they don't necessarily have to be a TCU fan, right? Because we're not talking about TCU specific stuff here. We're widening the lens a little bit. If you know someone who's interested in the business aspects of sports or the political aspects of sports, or wants to hear interesting stories from around college athletics, tune them in to Indie Drill. Get them to like the YouTube page over at Frogs Insider, or subscribe to the podcast channel so they can get it in their feed every week. That would go a long way to growing the show. Also, leaving a rating and review would go a long way to helping the show as well. So please do that if you haven't already, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I know I just said it, but I'm going to say it again, because it's interesting seeing the number of listeners to this podcast every week, and then looking at the number of subscribers on the YouTube channel and thinking, gosh, that's like not even half of the people listening to the show every week have liked the YouTube channel. So if we could all go just collectively and do that really quickly, that would be lovely. We would really enjoy that and appreciate that from each and every one of you. Based on some feedback we got this week, I think on the last episode, I asked, hey, if you guys want the live post-game show in the podcast feed, we can start doing that. A couple people reached out and said, hey, we would love that, because we don't get to necessarily watch it live, and we'd like to follow up with it on Sunday morning as a listen then. We will start putting the post-game show, live show, in the podcast feed every week. So that is me, Melissa, Jeremy Clark from HornFrogBlitz.com, and Stephen Johnson from the Fort Worth Star Telegram. We get together after every TCU football game and do a live stream post-game show, live reactions right after the post-game press conferences. We've done that every game this year. That will continue for Kansas State this weekend. You can find that over in the Frogs Insider YouTube channel, and on Sunday morning, you'll be able to find that audio version in your podcast feeds as well, as long as you are subscribed to the Frogs Insider podcast feed. It will show up there starting on Sunday morning. So thanks to the folks who reached out and asked for that. We are happy to do that. It's a very simple thing to do. It does not take much time. So worth the effort, frankly, to get that done. Super thankful for all of you. Super glad to be here. Happy to be talking ball with all of y'all, as they say. We're going to start this episode with a couple of Twitter questions. Got a few interesting ones, really, this week that I wanted to address on the show. And then we'll jump into some of the other stuff as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. Also, on a side note, if y'all are on social media at all, specifically on Twitter or X, whichever one you call it, go search up at Cocaine Willie. It's a crazy ass name, I know. Wild name. It is a podcast for Kansas State. I was a guest on their show this week. It was very fun. Very fun. Talked to them for about 45 minutes about the TCU Kansas State matchup. You can find that on their Twitter page at Cocaine Willie. So go check that out. I also retweeted it, so if you go to my feed, you can see it there as well. Let's get into some actual Twitter questions, though, as we move into the evening. Let's start here. All right. Brian Banks, who always makes me do math. I think Brian doesn't like me because he makes me do math all the time. Brian Banks says, TCU will rush for this is two-parter. TCU will rush for 200 yards in the rest of their games this season, but you have to let every meal you eat sit out for 30 minutes before consuming it for the rest of your life. Deal or no deal? My life wouldn't be that long, Brian. I think that can kill you, can't it? I don't know. I don't like lukewarm food. So, and I also don't need TCU to rush for 200 yards in the rest of their games. I would just take 100 yards, frankly, at this point. They've rushed for 100 combined yards in their last two football games. Just give me 125 yards. Give me 140 yards rushing. Give me 150 yards rushing every game for the rest of the year, and I'll be content. I'll be happy. I don't need it to be 200 yards. I like my food warm. I like my food hot. No deal, Brian. No deal. Brian also says TCU scores 77 points between the Kansas State, Baylor, and West Virginia games. How are you dividing them up? He gave me one of these challenges earlier in the year. We're going to do this again. So 77 is not an even number. It's not a number that's divisible by 3. I think it's a prime number, actually. I don't know what a prime number is. Who am I kidding? That's not a calculator. That's my clock app. Oh my God, it's so late. We're screwed. All right. Let's see. So that's roughly 25 points a game. I'm going to say, and I'm going to use the same strategy I used last time, because this is Kansas State, Baylor, West Virginia. One of those is not like the other, and that's West Virginia. So I'm going to say TCU is only going to need 17 points to beat West Virginia. Okay? They're going to win that game probably 17-10, just for the sake of this exercise. That leaves us with 60 points between Kansas State and Baylor. Baylor's offense is good. Sawyer Robertson is very good, and I think Baylor's going to be able to rack up some points on TCU. I think TCU's defense is going to be good against Kansas State. So I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here, and I'm going to say that TCU only needs 21 points. 24 points to beat Kansas State. 60 minus 24. Carry the 1. That leaves us with 36 points against Baylor. I think that'll get it done. I think 36 against Baylor, 24 against Kansas State, 17 against West Virginia would get it done. I think the Frogs would be 3-0 in that stretch if they broke up those points that way. I like that, Brian. I hate math, but I like that question. That's a good one. Keep those coming. Okay. We got another question as well. Let's see here. Brandon Oakes asks, the game in Manhattan feels a little bit like a trap. Although Kansas State has struggled so far this season, the Frogs haven't won in Manhattan since 2017. What do the Frogs need to do best on Saturday to come home with a win? What do they need to do best? Great question. Um, Very specific. I like it. What do they need to do best? At the end of the day, TCU tends to live and die by the passing game. Like if it's working, if it's clicking, they're scoring points, they're probably going to win, right? The one time we've really seen a significant lapse in the passing game this year was the second half against Arizona State. And what ended up happening? Arizona State came back and won that football game, right? So I think if TCU can just come out firing in the passing game. If Hoover is wheeling and dealing, making all the right reads, getting the ball out on time, if McAllister and Manjack and Dwyer and Small and Chase Curtis and DJ Rogers are all just running their routes exactly how they should, settling down in the gaps in the zone, just doing everything that they've been doing really for the rest of the season. I think TCU comes out on top in that football game. I think it's going to be a game dictated by offense, and I think if the Frogs' offense is clicking in the passing game, then they're going to be pretty pleased with the results come Saturday night. Mando Frog asks, with how the season is going, is it looking like Josh is staying a high draft pick or thinking there's a good chance we have him for 2026? And would you say this year would be the year to accomplish the most, or will we have good carryover for 2026 in most positions? I see what you're asking here, Mando. It's kind of a two-parter. So to Josh specifically, I like Josh. I would say the odds still are in the favor of Josh returning in 2026. Although he's had a great start to the year, I've seen him projected as a first round draft pick, and I think CBS mock draft did that. But other than that, like he's not really on a bunch of big boards up that high, right? I mean, this is a pretty good quarterback class. There are a lot of guys that could come out in the draft this year. Dante Moore at Oregon is one of them, right? Fernando Mendoza at Indiana, Nussmeier at LSU, like Ty Simpson at Alabama could come out this year if he wanted to. Like there are a lot of quarterbacks who could probably test the draft waters if they were really feeling it in the spring. I think not saying that Josh wouldn't go high in a high quality quarterback draft, right? But he's just still not getting some of the attention that maybe he deserves at this point. Some of that is the mobility, some of that is the size, but the reality is he's got good arm strength. He makes quick reads, he gets the ball out on time. I think that as long as he continues to build that sample size up and increase that sample size, the more people are going to start noticing him. I don't know if he's going to be able to, in the last 7 games of the regular season, get enough evidence out there for someone to be like, yeah, I would take this guy in the early second round or something like that. Maybe, I don't know. But right now I'm leaning towards him being back in 2026. That being said, there's a lot of veteran talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, for this football team in 2025. Now, we have some issues with the defense, right? Specifically the secondary. Some of those guys have struggled at times, but Clark's jumping too many routes, in my opinion, right? Namdi Obiezor is struggling a little bit to cover in the flats. But overall, I mean, you bring a lot of that talent back in 2026. And if you can address maybe a need or two, maybe go get a corner in the portal if you really feel like you need to do that, or maybe a guy develops over the offseason. On the offense, I think, I mean, the offensive line, yeah, I think 2026 might be a better year for it than 2025 is turning out to be. But you've got to make some changes in your philosophy there too, as I've discussed on previous episodes of the show. So I wouldn't write off 2026, but I do think there still needs to be a bar that's met in 2025, and it's not insignificant, right? I think 9 wins really needs to be. I think 9 wins is achievable, and I think the TCU needs to get there in order for morale and all the other things to continue to happen, right? Because I mean, TCU fans are used to seeing a bunch of seasons in a row with 10, 11 wins. And we haven't seen that since 2022 with Sonny Dykes at the helm. Now, 9 wins last year was good. Didn't play a ranked team all year, right? You got a good quality win against SMU. You beat the brakes off of North Carolina. I think Colorado's a tougher out than we've given them credit for just because of their record. And then you lost by 3 points on the road against an Arizona State team that's pretty quality. So I think there's still a lot to be achieved in 2025, and I think that 2026 you can make the case that there's going to be a lot to achieve then. Absolutely, absolutely. Last question on Twitter that we're going to get to tonight is from Colin Post, Old Beans, the intern, Frogs Insider intern. He just says, talk about the Cardinals. Now, for those of you that don't know, Colin Post is an Arizona Cardinals fan. It's the worst quality about him, the only bad quality, some are saying, many are saying. Um, and the Cardinals were embroiled in a little bit of uh, some shenanigans, some tomfoolery, if you will, on Sunday. One instance specifically revolving around a former TCU Horned Frog running back named Amari DiMercato, who had a great 71-yard run all the way right up to the goal line when he did the inexplicable thing of letting go of the ball too soon. And it rolled out of the back of the end zone. And I, to this day, do not understand how a player lets that happen. Maybe they think they've crossed the line a split second before they did, whatever. Just tuck that thing high and tight and hand it to the official who stands under the goalpost, and you'll know for sure that you crossed the goal line with the ball in your possession, right? We saw Lloyd, the Jacksonville Jaguars linebacker, do that on Monday Night Football this week, tucking it high and tight on that pick six, that 99-yard pick six he had against Patrick Mahomes. But DiMercato fumbles it out of the back of the end zone. It is not a touchdown. Uh, the Cardinals were leading like 21-3 at that point, or 21-6 at that point, and the Titans end up coming back and winning. I don't think that was the most inexplicable play that happened in against the Cardinals that day. Cam Ward threw an interception that the Arizona DB promptly fell down and fumbled. Another Arizona player tries to recover it and kicks it into the end zone where a Tennessee wide receiver recovers it for a touchdown. And that made it a one possession. That made it a field goal game at that point. So I think that play had more of an impact on the outcome of that game on Sunday than DiMercato's fumble did, but DiMercato's catching heat, and frankly, he should. You can't make that kind of mistake. Come on now. It'd be better than that. And DiMercato's got like a PhD, basically. He was in college for like 9 years. Come on. Come on, Amari. We're all cheering for you. We're all rooting for you. You got this. Okay. That's my Cardinals talk on a TCU podcast. Let's jump in to some interesting things. So wow, that's bright. I am so pale when we do it like that. We're gonna move this over here. Maybe if my computer allows it. We're gonna move this right here. Okay. You're gonna see my non-chin for a little bit. But we're gonna move on to Blueprint Sports. Because if you remember the last episode, if you listened to that, we talked a little bit about the contract that Blueprint Sports signed with Oregon State. Now, just a very quick recap. Blueprint Sports is a third-party organization, a consulting firm that works with universities as their kind of NIL roster management arm, right? So if a school doesn't have a team internally employed to handle that stuff, or maybe it's a really small team, they can contract out to Blueprint Sports, and Blueprint Sports will handle a lot of the logistics of that. But someone FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Acted, the contract with Oregon State and released the details of it, and they were ridiculous. Oregon State was getting screwed. They were paying about $300,000 in an annual fee to Blueprint Sports, and Blueprint Sports was keeping 75% of the money they fundraised up to a certain point, and then 50% of the money after that. They were essentially, if in a single season, if Oregon State fundraised $3 million, Blueprint Sports was getting over $1.5 million of that money. They were getting over 50% of the money. It was a horrible deal for Oregon State. It's still in place as of right now. But I went onto the Blueprint Sports website to read some of the other schools that had contracts with them, if you'll recall this from last episode, and realized that they had changed their homepage. And I thought that they had just removed a bunch of the school logos from their homepage. We only saw 5 at that point. They were Penn State, Arkansas, NC State, Maryland, and Oregon State, right? Were the 5. But before that, there were a bunch of G5 schools. Syracuse was on there, right? There were some other schools on there as well. All those logos were gone. And I'm realizing now that it wasn't just because they redid the front page of their website. It's because Blueprint Sports has been hemorrhaging clients since the settlement happened. And the latest is Arkansas. Arkansas's cutting bait, leaving their contract with Blueprint Sports as of this week. 24/7 Sports Arkansas site, Hog Sports, reported this earlier this week. Connor Goodson wrote the article. There are a couple quotes from Arkansas in the article. But just to kind of give you a picture of what these relationships tend to look like. So Arkansas has an official collective called Arkansas Edge. It was a collective founded by Arkansas folks. They've ran it for a couple of years, turned it over to Blueprint Sports, and Blueprint Sports effectively ran Arkansas Edge. They managed that collective for the school. But the school has started to unwind, as they said, that relationship. So this is from the University of Arkansas. Quote, the University of Arkansas Athletics Department began unwinding its relationship with Blueprint Sports following the House vs. NCAA settlement earlier this year, and will officially end the relationship October 15th. So in just a couple days. As the new era of college athletics has evolved, Arkansas athletics' focus on securing NIL opportunities for student athletes has transitioned successfully to the front office, internal team, essentially, and the new director of NIL strategy. Additionally, multimedia rights partner Learfield continues to support the department by engaging companies for NIL opportunities for student athletes. The efforts of the Arkansas Edge staff and support from members over the past 2 years is greatly appreciated and filled an important role. However, there is a different path forward in the new era of college athletics that is in the best interest for the sustained success of the Arkansas Razorbacks. All that to say, we don't need them anymore. We're doing it in-house, right? They also say that they tried to find new ways to keep their contract with Blueprint Sports, to keep that partnership going, but none really came to the surface that made a ton of sense. And it seems like, so like if you're looking at the timeline, you see the Oregon State news break last week and the contract details about that, and then you realize that Arkansas is a partner with Blueprint, and Arkansas fans were naturally a little concerned. Hey, what does our contract look like if Oregon State's is that bad? But it looks like Arkansas had, prior to that report coming out, already started to distance themselves and break ties with Blueprint. So timing was a little interesting there. But by the middle of October, it appears that Blueprint and Arkansas will no longer be partners. Blueprint's floundering, y'all. They lost 80% of their clientele in the last 4 months. That's not good for business. They laid off a bunch of... They were supposed to acquire another NIL organization called Sunil, Student Athlete NIL. But Sunil missed a round of fundraising, laid off a bunch of its staff, and then basically canceled the merger because Sunil went under. And so Blueprint Sports had these expectations of an expanded staff, like an analytics team, a team that would go work in-house at certain schools, and all these other plans. And their company they bought missed out on like $1 million fundraising effort, laid off all their staff. Now Blueprint's holding the bag and losing all of its clients. Safe to say, the third-party NIL industry, not in great shape right now. So if you're thinking about, hey, how could I maybe, third-party NIL with my school, maybe just pump the brakes. There's a reason a lot of these schools are bringing all of this work in-house. It's incredibly complex. You've got to deal with NIL Go and the CSC. You've got to figure out third-party opportunities and coordinate all of that through the CSC. You've got Learfield doing its own work, which, by the way, Learfield is on campus at TCU as well and is working on similar things for TCU, right? Learfield's a huge property, a huge company that is in hundreds of universities and doing similar NIL-style work, pretty much at all of them at this point. And then you've got, then you've got the rev share aspect, which is a totally different bucket of money. And so there's just so much complexity around this stuff. It makes a ton of sense when an athletic department brings it all in-house, because I know it's not biblical, but the left hand has to know what the right hand is doing in this situation. It has to, or someone's going to get caught doing something they shouldn't. Someone's going to make a mistake that's going to cost the school millions of dollars, and you just can't have that. That costs people jobs. That costs you student athletes. That costs you wins on the field, which costs you revenue, which costs you right. The downstream effect of these mistakes is going to be felt significantly for a lot of different schools, and so they're trying to get control of as much of it as possible to just kind of grab the reins and hold on tight and hope everything works out for the better. Anyways, Blueprint Sports. I don't know if it's going to be around much longer, but it seems like they've made some critical errors in the way they've done their contracts and the way they've handled business as partners with some of these institutions, and now it's all kind of blowing up in their face. What are you going to do? Such is life. Okay, let's keep right on rolling because I mentioned NIL Go and I mentioned the College Sports Commission, and they are absolutely blowing it right now. They are blowing it right now. And here is how they are blowing it. So we know and we love on this show Amanda Kristovich. She is a reporter for Front Office Sports. She does tremendous work. You absolutely should take a look at her stuff over at FOS because she does an excellent job. But she wrote an article earlier in October that's titled Fed Up NIL Collectives Are Bypassing NIL Deal Approval Process. So let's set the table here. When the House settlement was approved back in June and scheduled for July 1, one of the aspects of that settlement was a third-party vendor that was going to review and approve all third-party NIL deals. So the NCAA contracted Deloitte, the accounting firm, to create the College Sports Commission, which is an independent group of people who review all third-party NIL deals. What's a third-party NIL deal? Say you've got a local car wash that calls up a school and says, hey, you've got a couple of football players who bring their cars here to get car washed. We would like to do a contract with them and pay them to promote our car wash. Okay. So you guys would draft up a contract. The car wash and the school would help draft up a contract. The student would sign it. And then you would take that contract and you would submit it to a software, a service essentially called NIL Go. NIL Go takes that contract, does a little AI review, sends it to the CSC. They do a little manual human review, and they say, is this a valid business purpose, right? Is there an outcome, a genuine outcome from this business purpose? Like, what's the student athlete doing? Are they appearing in a commercial? Are they making a social media post? Are they doing a series of appearances, right? And then what is the market value for that work? And does the money that they are being paid fall within that range, that value? So all of this happens, and then the CSC will send the contract back to the school or back to the student athlete and say, yes, this is approved. You can officially sign this contract and start getting paid and start doing work. Or no, this is not approved. Here are some modifications that need to happen. Or no, this is just not approved at all, and there's no modification you can make for it to be approved, right? The problem is that the review process is taking weeks and weeks, if not months, for some of these kids to get their contracts and their NIL opportunities renewed or reviewed. That's costing them money, right? So there are a couple instances that I know of for sure, not at TCU, but elsewhere, of a contract being submitted to NIL Go and taking several weeks, several months to be reviewed. And during that time, the promotion that the vendor was wanting to do passed. And so there was no longer a point to paying this kid to do the appearance or the post or whatever, right? There have been instances of that. And so the kid doesn't end up getting paid anything because he didn't do anything because the contract took forever to get reviewed. Other instances, we got to remember the socioeconomic background of a lot of these kids. Some of them are very dependent on NIL dollars and Redshirt dollars. There have been instances where a kid signs an NIL deal, submits it to the CSC, and then can't get paid until that contract is approved. And they're like waiting to send this money back home because mom doesn't have a job, or dad is out of the picture, or dad doesn't have a job and mom's out of the picture, whatever it might be. And like, they're just trying to help their family make ends meet. and they can't because they can't get that money because the contract's tied up in the CSC for 5, 6, 7 weeks at a time. It makes no damn sense. Like, how did you not have the foresight to understand as a group of adults reviewing contracts that it's going to take time? Hey, maybe we should build out our staff to a point where we can turn some of these around pretty quickly, right? And the other aspect of this is that they've already been sued once by collectives because the CSC initially ruled that collectives do not meet the definition of a valid business purpose, right? It's not pay for play, and that's very important. They can't just get a paycheck because they're on a team, right? Now, that happened a little bit with collectives in the past couple of years, but it's not allowed anymore. So what's happening with contracts being delayed, with all this other stuff? Well, collectives sued and got there and won, essentially, to be able to submit contracts to the CSC and get them approved. But now that the delays are taking so long, guess what happened, folks? At least 2 NIL collectives have begun to pay players before the submitted deals have been approved in the clearinghouse. Are we shocked by this? Of course we're not, because who's in charge? Adults, and adults are very dumb. Adults are impatient, and in some instances, in this case, they're impatient for good reason, because these kids need this money. Multiple major power conferences, Amanda writes, multiple major power conference collectives are giving up trying to work through NIL Go and within the bounds of the new rules set up by the settlement. At least 2 collectives have begun to pay players before the submitted deals have been approved and are aware of instances where players haven't logged deals at all. We're right back where we started. And it was the most obvious, inevitable conclusion of all time. Truly. And the thing is like, the students are the ones that still end up screwed, right? Like, you can slap a fine on a school, you can slap a fine on a collective, and they'll pay it or they won't pay it, and they'll shutter and all this, that, and the other. But who at the end of the day is the one that still gets left out in the cold? It's the student athlete. Because we can't ever get it right in a way that allows the student athlete to actually thrive. It's like it's impossible. We just can't figure it out. It's beyond us to be able to figure out how to actually take care of these student athletes. And a lot of them make a lot of money. Sure. And a lot of them get paid more than you or I get paid. Sure. The market dictates that that's what they're worth. So get them their money. Right? We love capitalism, right? That's the big thing right now. Been a big thing for a couple hundred years here. Market dictates value. Well, come on. Market's dictating value, and they're still not getting their paychecks. We should probably fix that. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Like, the solution seems so simple. It really seems so simple. All you have to do is get a team that's big enough, or guidelines that are clear enough, or a combination of the two. Run a script for all I care. I don't care. And just review these things. There is no reason that a contract should be tied up for a month and a half in this system. It makes no damn sense. You fumbled it. You absolutely, of course, the NCAA fumbled it, right? And well, no, it's Deloitte and it's the CSC. Well, Deloitte, not exactly a beacon of accuracy. It was, what is it, a month ago? They misrepresented the dollar amount of contracts that they had already approved by like $25 million. Is there one competent adult out there that can figure this out? One. We need one. Haven't found them yet. Might still be a while. But we need one competent person to figure this all out. We just need one. But I'm not holding my breath, because I don't think it's happening anytime soon. Okay. Moving along to our next topic here. Very interesting story out of Virginia Tech recently. John Talty and Chris Hummer reported that Virginia Tech, the institution, stopped revenue share payments to a player who expressed an interest in redshirting. This is an accusation from an attorney, a representative of that player. But it brings up something that I didn't even think about. Because we talk about, and a lot of the conversation has been around the validity of a contract insofar as what happens to it when a kid transfers, right? And we saw a couple instances, especially in college basketball this offseason, of a kid signing with the school, agreeing to a rev share deal, and then transferring after that because he got a better offer somewhere else, and there not being any kind of repercussions, right? There have been a lot of conversations about buyouts in these contracts and what those should look like. Should a student have to pay back some of the money if they leave a contract early from a school? Probably. All that's still being worked out. The big hiccup there is, are these kids employees? Still got to figure that stuff out too. But at Virginia Tech, they stopped revenue share payments and dismissed the player when that player approached the coaching staff about the possibility of redshirting this season. And so the lawyer is Darren Heitner. You can follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow on Twitter, by the way. I've really enjoyed his work. And this is coming from Heitner. A Virginia Tech football player was informed that his revenue share payments would stop after the player reached out to interim head coach Philip Montgomery and expressed an intent to redshirt. Rather than honor that request, the school removed him from the football roster, informed him that all guaranteed money from the signed revenue share agreement would be stopped immediately. They revoked his access to the program and told him to return all program property. Okay. I can hear the reactions. They're coming from 1,000 different directions. Initial thought. If a player should owe money back because they breach a contract early, it's fully within the school's right to reclaim some of those dollars if a kid doesn't want to play anymore. But I think where I land is, once again, what's best for the student athlete. Now, if you had a kid who came in as a true freshman and wasn't developmentally ready to play whatever sport that kid was playing, but you had already committed to a rev share deal, are you just going to wipe out that year of payments because they weren't ready yet and they have to redshirt? No. There are kids redshirting all across the country right now in a bunch of different sports who are still getting their rev share checks. Because at the end of the day, 99% of student athletes in college are developmental. They're not going to be ready to play their freshman year. There are some exceptions, but those are exceptions, not the rule. This instance at Virginia Tech feels vindictive. It feels like retribution. And it all stems from the fact that a coach got fired, right? A player can enter the portal 30 days. There's a window after a coach gets fired that a student athlete can hit the portal and say, I'm going to find a new home. There's no repercussion for that. That's an opportunity because the situation at your school has changed. The situation at Virginia Tech changed because, was it Brent Key? Is he at Virginia? It's one of the Brents. Brent Key, Brent Pry, I think it was, at Virginia Tech, got fired. He got fired. And now you're telling a kid, hey, by the way, I know you want a red shirt and maybe explore your options because the situation here changed, but actually, haha, sucks. We're not going to pay you anymore. Give all your stuff back. You're not allowed in the building anymore. In what world does that make sense? It doesn't. But here we are again, arguing about the same dumb crap because, I don't know, we can't get it right. Still haven't found that smart person. Still haven't found one person to actually bring some sense into the situation and help people figure it out. So we've got interim head coaches, Phil Montgomery. Stop myself before I went too far. Phil Montgomery, who's out here on a power trip, telling a kid, hey, by the way, you're not on the team anymore because you wanted a red shirt, and you're not going to get paid anymore because you wanted a red shirt. I know I'm not the guy you signed up to play for because I'm the interim head coach. But guess what, buddy? I'm in charge. Look at me now. Brutal. And Heitner goes on to say to CBS Sports, this is perhaps one of the most ludicrous positions I've ever seen a university take. We never opted out. We never committed fraud. We never made a threat. We never provided an ultimatum. We never opted out. What is going on? This is a mere request. He said if denied, he wouldn't participate for the team. Or he never said if denied, he wouldn't participate for the team. He never expressed an intention to transfer, even though the window is open. He never put his name in the transfer portal. In fact, Heitner said, the player who still has not entered his name into the transfer portal would like to stay at Virginia Tech, but feels like the school is forcing his hand to eventually transfer. Well, yeah. Unbelievable. Just, it's so crazy to me that you can get it this wrong. How can you get it this wrong? All the time. Virginia Tech, first of all, we're just coming off the heels of Virginia Tech's AD making a presentation to the university about, hey, we better fix our stuff or we're going to get left behind. Like, Virginia Tech financially has not been invested. Has not been invested. They did not give Pry the money that he needed to run that program at a point where it would be as successful as Virginia Tech fans want to be successful. And now you're kicking a kid to the curb because he thought maybe it would be a good idea to redshirt. By the way, I want to stay here. I just kind of want to figure it out for a second. I'm 20 years old. I'm 19 years old. I just lost my coach. Could I maybe have a second to figure out what I want to do next? By the way, I love it here and I probably want to stay. And the reaction from the school is, sorry, no money, no access. Give us your playbook back. It makes no damn sense. It makes no damn sense. Just unbelievable. 3 other Virginia Tech players have entered the portal, by the way. Not this kid. Not this one. Others have, though. Brutal. Anyways, I'll link that story. I'll link all the stories that I've referenced here in the show so far in the show notes on the podcast platform of your choice and on the YouTube channel. Those will all be linked there. I'm going to pass out that. That got me fired up, y'all. Look out. I almost said swears. Instead of swearing, let's get into some picks because week 7 has some absolute bangers of football games. I am thrilled that week 7 is upon us. The first game that I want to talk about specifically is a G5 game on Friday night. North Texas, 5-0. North Texas. Eric Morris has that thing humming. 5-0, North Texas hosts 4-1 South Florida. South Florida of beating Florida fame. South Florida of beating Boise State fame. Number 24 in the country, the Bulls head to North Texas on Friday night, October 10th at 6:30 p.m. on ESPN2. South Florida, despite being a road team, is a 1.5 point favorite. The over-under is set at 67.5. I like the over. Because if you haven't watched a single second of North Texas this year, you should know that they're a wagon. They're a wagon. They're scoring 44 points a game. 44 points a game, folks. 13th in the country. My goodness. This is 2 offenses that are just going to bludgeon each other. Pretty much. They're just going to bludgeon each other. I like North Texas in this game too, personally, but I'm kind of a, hey, state of Texas homer. So there is that to consider. Moving on to the next pick. Number 3, Oregon hosts number 7, Indiana. Talk about bludgeoning each other. Oregon goes into Happy Valley and gets what we thought was a really good win. And then Penn State, did what they did against UCLA. Indiana bludgeoned Illinois to death and then went into Iowa and proceeded to have a very Iowa-style rock fight with the Hawkeyes. Came out on top. And now they travel to Autzen. This could be tough. Oregon's a 7.5-point favorite in a top 10 matchup, 2:30 on CBS on Saturday afternoon. I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't know why I put this one on the thing for this week. So this one makes me nervous. Over under 55.5. I'll take the under on that. No, I don't think I will. I'm just all over the place. This is going to be a hell of a football game, though. I do know that. I'm very excited. Give me Oregon. Give me Oregon. I think Oregon's the better team. I think this is going to be one of the more fun and thrilling matchups in college football to this point in the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if we still saw both of these teams in the college football playoff come December. Next up, y'all know the drill. Red River Shootout over at the Cotton Bowl in Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. The Longhorns hosting number 6 Oklahoma. The rumor is that John Mateer is coming back. Texas is a 1.5 favorite because of some reason. I don't know. But I know Oklahoma's defense is better than Florida's. And I watched most of that Texas football game. 2:30 on ABC. Give me Oklahoma every way to Sunday in that matchup. Number 4, a Big 12 matchup on Saturday night as number 21 Arizona State travels to Utah. 9:15 p.m. on ESPN. Utah's a 5.5-point favorite here, and that's really interesting to me because the only time Utah's played a good defense this year, they got boat raced by Texas Tech. Is Arizona State's defense good, perchance? Definitively above average and very good against the run. So you're going to make Devin Dampier throw the football a lot in this game. If I'm Arizona State, I like my chances with that. Now, Utah's defense is also very solid, but, I mean, I'll take Sam Leavitt over Devin Dampier, and I'll take Arizona making Utah throw it over Utah making Arizona State throw it or run it. So give me Arizona State plus the points, 5.5. And last but not least, TCU hasn't won in Manhattan since 2017. They travel up to Kansas State this weekend for a matchup on Fox at 2:30 in the afternoon. TCU is a 1.5-point favorite. This line opened Kansas State minus 1.5 and has already swung towards the Frogs. I think a lot of money is on the Frogs. A lot of fan sentiment from both fan bases is on the Frogs in this football game. And I, too, am on the Horned Frogs in this football game. I think TCU covers. I think this is the get the monkey off the back kind of football game in Manhattan for TCU as long as they can keep Josh Hoover upright. That offensive line. As long as they do that, I think if TCU's passing game, like I said at the beginning of the show, if the TCU passing game is clicking on all cylinders, I think TCU wins this game and wins it comfortably. If it's not, we might be having a real different conversation on the Sunday show when Melissa gets back from Manhattan. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Truly, truly, truly thank you. Like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. Much love to each and every one of you. We'll talk to you next time. Go Frogs.